let us all do we can to build a better future.
I am proud to introduce or reintroduce returning guest to our show. Her show is right now growing at 10,000 subscribers, and it's at right now a little bit past 10,000 subscribers, and it's growing, and it should be higher. Sadly, YouTube's like to suppress independent media. I want everyone to give it up for the outstanding voice, someone who has been a critical thinker, calling out hypocrisy and analyzing politics in a brand new perspectives. Give it up for the host of Savvy Tab, Sabrina. Thank you so much for joining us here at Hard Lens Media.
Hi, Kit. Happy birthday.
I think because of that, you're my favorite guest of the year right there. So there you go. You're number one. So when we do the New Year's countdown of favorite guests, it's undeniable. Savvy, I'm going to be a little biased here. You're number one. So there you go. But thank you so much for joining us. So there is a lot to talk about. And actually, you reached out to me talking about a very important summit that's happening at the end of this month, or near the end of this month, between February 26th and February 27th, with outstanding panelists, pundits, individuals with different perspectives, independent journalists. It's the Women's Summit of 2022. And I think it's only fair for our viewers and subscribers that we see the trailer to this video, and let's go ahead and play it so everyone can see it and mark it in their calendars, and then let's go ahead and talk about it as well as other current events that are happening right now. So let's play that video if we can.
Yeah, there's music to it. I don't know if I told you.
Oh, that's right. Outstanding. Well, all right. Awesome intro. So I think it's only fair. Sabrina, what led you to actually create this summit or help organize with all these other wonderful individuals who've been on our show or have their own individual shows altogether? Mm-hmm. These are different women who have been purveyors, speaking truth to power, and of course, standing up against the establishment. What led to you and I guess a few others to actually create this summit for February 26th and 27th?
Yeah, I actually thought about this a year ago. I just procrastinated like in planning. But one thing I noticed on the left is there's a lot of focus on what we don't agree on. There's a lot of infighting. And I wondered if there was a way to bring together women that are in this space. We may not even agree on all the political issues, but I wondered if I could bring us together on the issues that we do agree with and hopefully create some type of community and we can learn from each other. So that is the difference. So you may see people on this panel that you may not align with politically, that you don't agree with 100%. I don't agree with everyone on everything. But when it comes to these 4 issues that we're going to be speaking about, we do agree on those issues and they are very important. And I think you're going to hear from these women about their personal experiences as well, dealing with these issues and how we can help other people go forward. And I think the idea also is to create allyship. So I don't want people to think that this is just for women. I want men to watch this as well, so you can know about the issues that we're going through as women in this country and how you can be an ally.
And I think that's very important we do talk about it because, sadly, what we've seen, especially in the last year or 2 years since the pandemic started, there's been a lot of suppression towards new voices that are speaking out. And yes, of course, it's been impacting a lot of podcasters who are African American, Latino, but also women have been censored a lot on YouTube, especially when it comes talking down to these very sensitive subjects that might upset the YouTube algorithm. And I think we all know the various trigger words that will upset the blind attack dog. And personally, again, it's horrible for this platform to do that because, again, your voices are being silenced. And I think this is a chance for a lot of people to understand, like, well, wait, let's find out what's really happening in the workspace. So let's talk about violence. Let's talk about the issues that a lot of women have to deal with, because at the end of the day, Me Too and Time's Up dropped the ball on a lot of these issues, and it just became just another platform for the rich to talk about the issues, but get nothing done. They would say things, and then once the cameras were off, everyone would forget. So how do you plan on making this summit meeting different than things that we've seen before with Me Too and Time's Up? Because they had that opportunity, but I'm seeing all these panelists on there, and they have spoken about the issues, but yet we see on social media a lot of them being criticized, being talked down to, or being told that they should be censored.
I think the problem with Me Too is that it was co-opted by Hollywood. It was co-opted by celebrities. And let's be real. If they want to walk away from movement, they can do it very quickly. And I think that's the dangerous thing about celebrities trying to lead some type of like movement. And I've seen this happen multiple times before. It just doesn't work out. Whereas here, you have women from all different backgrounds, different class, different ethnicities. We're all different, but what we do have in common are these issues that we're talking about. And everyone has different experiences with them. So if you look at someone, for example, like Marianne Williamson, I don't agree with her strategy on putting progressives through the Democratic Party. I've been very vocal about that.
Yes.
But
you're not alone.
Yeah. But when it comes to the healthcare issue, she's someone that was at the marches for Medicare for All in DC. She was a speaker there. She heavily supported it, promoted it. So when it comes to women's health, when it comes to these issues that we're talking about, she agrees on these issues. So one of the things that I like to say to people, there's a lot of division over the whole podcast thing, like the Jimmy Dore side, the TYT, all this like division. And I've always said this, like, why don't you focus on the things that you do agree with them on and bring them together that way? That's how you create those types of conversations. And that's how you can get people involved in movements. One of the things I noticed, like when I was trying to get people to like vote for Bernie Sanders, it was really tough. I'll be honest with you. But one of the things that I did is I started with the issues that we agreed with first. And then I moved on to the issues where I knew that we did not agree with. And one of the things that I found, regardless if someone was a Democrat, if they were Republican, or they were just, independent and didn't know which way they wanted to vote, when it came to the healthcare issue, that was one that a lot of people, most people I spoke to said, yes, everybody should have healthcare. So you want to start with the issues that you agree with them on first, and then you can get to the other issues where you differ.
I've noticed a problem, not noticed. I mean, it's been ongoing because we've all been talking about the infighting that we're seeing amongst a lot of podcasters, commentators, and especially on the left. And this infighting is very detrimental because it's causing more division, and there's very few things we can agree on. So what do you hope is one of the learning lessons that we can take away from this summit meeting? Because again, you have for this event that's happening between February 26th and the 27th, you have different perspectives and points of view. And look, I don't agree with Marianne Williamson's point of view of running into the Democratic Party. It's like running into a brick wall and hoping somehow you're going to knock it down. That's not going to happen at all. And then, of course, you have this whole idea of, well, then you can't run third parties. It's ongoing. What do you think should be one of the learning lessons that we could take away from this?
Right now, I think we're very divided, especially since that live stream. I'm just going to be honest. Like, I think
which
that
live stream is in particular, because there's been a couple of recent live streams that's been going on. That's been causing a lot of further infighting, unfortunately.
yeah, the live stream about seizing the Seize the House live stream.
I'm familiar with that one. There's been a few
Yeah,
others too.
there's been a lot. There's a lot of division, and I think people are focusing on the wrong things. People are still focusing on the Democratic Party putting progressives through left versus right. I'm past that. I think we need to move past that. This is not working. I think what we need to focus on is the money issue and the class problem. And I think there's not enough people talking about that. At the end of the day, the Democratic Party is owned by Wall Street. So putting people into a party that is corporate owned and is a corporation, you are not going to change the corporation. The powers that be are not going to let that happen. So I think what we need to focus on is the class issues that we have in this country, whether healthcare, all those issues that Bernie Sanders ran on, those are class issues at the end of the day. And I think what I noticed from watching that stream, if you are a part of a certain class and this project does not work out, at the end of the day, you will not be affected. The people who actually need those tangibles that we're fighting for, they will be affected. And I think that is the point that I wanted to get across. Like, regardless if you're wealthy or poor, all of us should be fighting for these issues. And we can do so through direct action. We can do so through mutual aid. None of the successful movements in this country were done through electoral politics. That didn't happen with the civil rights movement. That didn't happen with the women's movement. So I don't know why some people are still trying to focus on this. Let's do it through the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party doesn't even want the progressives there. Look at what they're doing right now to Cori Bush. They're trying to silence her. Cori Bush is being threatened now. She stands alone. Now she's supposed to be a part of the squad. Where is the squad to support Cori Bush? So what is going to happen is, one, she is going to hold strong and they will push her out of the party, or she's going to go along with the establishment because it's easier to do so and it's safer for her to do so. This is the problem, people. You're trying to put people into a party that does not want them. Why are we still trying to do this?
You know, when it comes down to the Democratic Party, or at least that people trying to tell everyone to vote blue no matter who, is it, in many ways, would you describe it as a child saying, no, you have to like this. You have to like this because the other things are bad. Don't walk away. You have to listen to me. You have to listen. It almost seems like a kid that's screaming at you for attention, even though you know for a fact that every time you give it attention, it's just going to keep on just wasting your time, especially if it's going to be crying and screaming all over the place.
Yeah, I know, like, some people believe that this is the only way, that this is the only way to go. And then some people believe we can do both. We can do this and we can do direct action and mutual aid. I'm here to tell you, you are not going to change a corporation. And you know what? I'm going to stop calling them parties. I'm going to call them that, corporations, because that's what they are. And nobody has come to me with a strategy on how to get the money out. So until you figure out how to get the money out, nothing is going to change. And I think some people, to be honest with you, kid, I think some people genuinely know that. And I think we're being played. I think there's some who still feel like, well, maybe this will work if we increase the numbers of the progressives like in the House. And they're not trying to play us. The problem is, who do you trust? Because there's been so many people that have gone through this that have turned out to be frauds. AOC, Bernie Sanders is giving Biden credit for things that he should not be getting credit for. It's just, this movement is done. I'm sorry. I hate to be the negative one here, but it's over. It is time to move on to something else and do a different strategy. I'm not going to sit up there and tell my audience to continue to do this so that they can get their hopes up and be disappointed again.
You know, another thing too that we've seen is that every time there is a movement to try and bring more people involved or hold politicians accountable, it's usually shut down. Take, for example, last year, forced to vote for Medicare for All. Jimmy Dore, Cornel West, Breonna Joy Gray, and so many others had about 100,000 plus people attended. Then, of course, there was the March for Medicare for All. Heartland's Media was part of it, as well as numerous other individuals were speaking out, marching with it. Marianne Williamson was there too. One of the few people who was and actually acknowledged it and participated in it. And then, of course, there was the event that was hosted by Revolutionary Blackout Network, the 3-day General Strike Summit meeting. Not once did you see any of the progressive lawmakers attended. And then let's look at also all these individual mutual aids that we're seeing that's being done by a lot of people who are part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, most notably Rome, for example, where he's doing mutual aid. But every time he has done so, or people like him do so, it's shot down or called grifting by people like Hassan Piker or other people that have larger platforms. And these are the ones that are saying we have to listen to the Democratic Party. The only way we can get things done is through Democratic Party. We can't do mutual aid. We can't do these marches. They're all a distraction because it's going to help out Republicans. I understand the idea of doing unification and the idea of maybe speaking to people you don't agree with. But there are larger platforms like TYT, like Majority Report, that were very integral in shooting down forced to vote, or the March for Medicare for All, and to some degree even the 3-day General Strike Summit meeting. So that's even though there might be some issues they agree with us on, there are these larger platforms that will silence it. How do we deal with that? Even though some of their audience will agree with some of our policies, how do we deal with these two, like a lot of these monolithic platforms that will silence up and coming voices?
You have to continue to call them out, because the reality is they're not going to have us on to have these discussions. They are paid to push progressives through the Democratic Party. That is their brand. That is what they are supposed to do. This is why anytime we come up with these direct action events, especially we're trying to collaborate with people that are from, some people might be conservative, but they wanted to do the March for Medicare for All. They're going to smear it because they don't want us to accomplish these things outside of electoral politics. Because if that happens, then people are going to point fingers at them and say, well, do we really need to practice this strategy of getting these progressives in if we can get these things done through direct action and mutual aid? Also, they're not fighters. They are not going to be out in the streets trying to protest. They don't want to leave their desk. It just is what it is. Some people are not into it like that, but people have to understand that at the end of the day, that is what they are paid to do. And they are paid very well to do it. So once you figure that out, and once you see where the money is coming from and who's paying who, we all know TYT is bought and paid by Katzenberg.
20 million. 20 million. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue. 20 million just came out. I don't know why I said that word. I have no idea.
No, it's true. So once you understand where the money's coming from, then you'll understand why they have the talking points that they have.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to acknowledge a chat that we did get, and it's an idea, but again, I'm not a fan of supporting either of the two parties. But Mark says, what about capturing the Republicans? They don't have super delegates, and there is a populist right to reach across. So the thing is, all right, let's actually look at this chat here. There is some merit to it, but let's actually talk about conservative voters, Republican voters, libertarian voters. Was there ever an incident where maybe you were, for example, knocking on doors for Bernie Sanders, or is it that maybe just having conversations? Because in this day and age, right now, you and I, we're both podcasters, we're commentators on our own shows individually. Was there ever a moment where you had a conversation with conservatives or Republican voters or libertarians and they surprised you with maybe, oh yeah, I agree with UBI, I agree with Medicare for All? Was there ever an incident where like you saw, oh, turns out we're not so different. There might be some policy issues we disagree on, but there's a vast majority of other things we do agree on?
It tended to work when I focused on the class issue, when I connected those policies issues to class. What I noticed is seemed like people of a wealthier bracket were not for those issues because it could affect them. It could hit their pocket, right? So again, and they're not things, these aren't tangibles that they need. If you're rich, do you really need Medicare for All? No, probably not. So, but when I would talk to people who were working class or people who were poor, they seemed to get it because I connected it to class. Like, explain to them where the numbers are and where they come from, telling them things like the United States has given the Pentagon $786 billion. They could take this money and they can put it towards healthcare for people in this country. Show them where the US government is spending their money and how it could be done in a more effective way. But I really said this before, if you're into electoral politics and you want to do change that way, you really need to reach the people who usually don't vote. Because those people usually don't come out because they don't believe that anything's going to change. That's why they don't bother with it. I've talked to multiple people like that. They're like, it's all just theater anyway. so they don't participate in it. You want to talk to those people, you need to talk to working class people, you need to talk to poor people, you need to talk to the people whose lives and communities are affected. And we're still trying to focus too much, I think, on I hate to say boomers, but I think we're trying to focus too much on trying to convince people who are maybe over the age of 65 to change their way of thinking and to get them, because they tend to come out heavier in numbers when it comes to voting. But instead of trying to convince them, I'm telling you right now, like I was able to convince my mom, but like most of my friends, like we're not able to convince their parents. Like they're like, no, we're Democrat. That's what we are. I think instead of focusing on that group, I think we need to focus on the people who don't come out to vote, because there's reasons why they don't do it, because they're just like, nothing gets done, regardless if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I think you got to reach those people. And that was the thing I noticed with Bernie. He was able to reach those people. So this idea, I think that, going back to the whole progressive thing, I've interviewed a lot of those candidates and they're good people. Like they really do want to make a change. The problem is not the candidates. The problem is the system that they're going into, and that system has not changed. And if you're paying attention right now, I want you to pay, or if you're not paying attention, I want you to pay very close attention to what's happening right now with Cori Bush, because that is a perfect example that this does not work. So hopefully people see it now.
There's something else I want to bring up too, because there's been a lot of changes happening, especially let's look at 2016. In 2016, there weren't as many platforms as there are now. And now we're seeing the rise of a lot of independent women journalists, podcasters, commentators. And I'm hoping that that is talked about, at least during this Women's Summit meeting, that's addressed about some of the challenges women have to face in this very competitive market. And let's face it, in this day and age of social media, on the internet, there is good, but then you also run into cruelty and ignorance and a lot of trolling.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that you had to deal with, or that you're probably still going through, due to the fact that there are many people that will not like what you're saying, especially being critical of the Democratic Party or being critical of electoral politics? And what do you want to say to women that might be considering doing what you're doing, perhaps waiting in the wings, or perhaps maybe they might be afraid to, step into this iron gauntlet that is social media?
Oh dear. I think the biggest challenge I faced was, well, there's two. One, coming in after Trump lost. The reality is, it is what it is. Unless you were pushing like pro Biden or Dem, like centrist, like ideology, the algorithm doesn't really like you. I'm just going to be honest. And the other thing that I faced, and I think, myself and Kim Brown and other women that I have that are part of the Ethnic Women's Liberation Panel, we've discussed this as well, is that I'm not just a woman, I'm also Black. So I'm a Black woman. And a lot of these like larger platforms do not want to have people like me on. It's just the reality. You don't see people who look like me on. And that should tell you something about this space. And so for me, what I've decided to do is to focus on my content and focus on like how I can build up what I do and improve what I do, and continue focusing on how I can help people in the community, and forget about the people who are not going to give you a time of day. And if anybody's paying attention, this is something that I noticed as well. You will hear a lot of these like larger platforms. Most people in this space are white. It just is what it is. It was mainly male, white men. But you'll see a lot of people with these larger platforms. They'll shout out other small channels that are white, but you will never hear them mention Revolutionary Blackout Network. And you need to ask yourself why that is. So I think the writing's very clear on the wall. I don't think they want people to hear us. I don't think they want their audience to hear anyone like us, because then their audience is going to look at them and say, why aren't you guys trying to take some of the money that you have and doing work in your community? Why aren't you guys trying to organize any type of direct action? Why aren't you guys trying to do any type of mutual aid? So it just is what it is. I did expect that coming into this, because I've watched independent media for a long time. But I think if you do want to do this and you're a female, that's something that you need to be prepared for, especially if you're a female of color, if you're a person of color, you need to be prepared for that. But just crush that noise and focus on you. There are people here who will help you. You can always reach out to me. I know you can reach out to people like Kim and the Bank sisters. They're like awesome. But you got to work with the people who really do want to help and want to support what you do, and stop trying to focus on the people who really don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's my advice to you.
And the thing is, look, you're going to run into haters. You're going to run into people that will troll you and criticize you. But then you'll also run into people that will support you. But let's face it, there is a clear bias with the YouTube algorithm. When I had Nick, also known as Socials MMA, does fantastic work on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I find it ironic when I was having the conversation with him. I said that sometimes YouTube's algorithm can be racist and bigoted. And for one quick second, our internet went down just for a little bit. It almost seemed like YouTube didn't like that we were talking about that, but it is very true. And there's a lot of subjects and stories that are happening in communities where it's predominantly African-American and Latino that will trigger the YouTube algorithm, that will upset. And I think we do need, what I've called for on the show is I want to see the rise of more citizen journalists. I want to see a rise of diversity. I want to see more individuals speaking out their minds. And I am hoping, and I will check this out for the Women's Summit meeting that's going to happen on the 26th and 27th, because I want to hear these different perspectives and these stories. And the thing is, I'm pretty sure a lot of the women panelists are going to be telling stories that will be uplifting, but we must prepare ourselves for the stories that are disparaging, that will make us uncomfortable. But we have to have these conversations, because if we don't, we're just silencing ourselves and putting ourselves into a bubble. So we can't have that. Another thing, too, I want to bring up, and that is when it comes down to the good, because I think for the most part, we do talk about, oh, no, you're going to deal with trolls. You'll deal with censorship. You'll deal with being deplatformed, being demonetized. But I think a lot of people also don't see the good. How has doing this show, I mean, right now your channel is at 10,000 subscribers, a little bit higher than that right now. It should be higher, were it not for suppression. But basically, how do you feel like right now that your channel is growing, that you do have a community? Why don't you tell people some of the good, some of the uplifting things that we have seen from the work that you're doing that's led you to lead this summit?
I'm honestly shocked I'm over 10,000 subs. I'll be honest with you. I did not think I would get to 10,000. So I'm really surprised by that. But I think that when it comes to the good things, I really like the community that has developed. And that's honestly come from doing live streams. I know some people don't like the live chat. They don't want to have that interaction, but I enjoy having that interaction with my audience, with someone else's audience, because you need to hear what your viewers are thinking and their concerns and how they feel. Otherwise, how can you improve? So I really enjoy that, and the fact that I've been able to meet some of my viewers like in person. Like Quaker Socialist lives right here in the Boston area with me, so we work together on the March for Medicare for All. Eric also lives here in Massachusetts. We've worked together, like he produces for me. So it's been really great to get to know the viewers and to get to know them more so on a personal level. Not all of them, but some of them on a personal level. And just to have that interaction, because it's really weird. When I first started doing this, I did uploads and it felt a little weird because there's nobody talking. You're not talking to anybody. It's just like talking into the camera, but there's no one responding. So it feels a little weird.
You know, I'll agree with you, because I've noticed, like, when I do a live stream show, I'm more active. I'm able to interact with the audience. It's happening right then and there. Whenever I had to do anything like recorded, like for a specific, this was like before we went to our studio, even before our older studio, we would do some recordings, and I always felt uncomfortable doing it. Like, wait, did I say that right? I wasn't in the action. And the action is like you get to interact with your community, and your community is also throwing in information too and supporting you and standing in solidarity. And I think that's incredible. That's an incredible tool to have, because you can also be learning from the audience, even though sometimes the stream chat goes fast, and that's something we can't control. But I think it's a wonderful experience to have. So I think as a final note for this story, I want to bring up a couple of chats here, because obviously they're from wonderful individuals. Shout out to Roger Meadows, who is one of our unofficial producers at Hard Lens Media, who does a lot of great work and has been pushing hard in the ballot initiatives. And I have to say, at this point, he has convinced me we need to abolish all parties. I'm now convinced. Roger, you're right. There you go. There, on my birthday, Roger, for the win. Democracy begins in states, more specifically ballot initiative states. Weed legalization began with voters passing in ballot initiative states. Now non-ballot initiative states are doing it.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for reminding me about that, because Roger's been telling me about this so many times and I forget. But I think we should do a panel about ballot initiatives, because I saw that you've been doing shows about that.
Well, first, correction. It is on Hard Lens Media, but it is the wonderful, incredible, outstanding, intelligent, legendary Kira McCown who has been covering ballot initiatives, and she has been leading the way on it, and she deserves all full credit for covering the ballot initiatives. She's been researching a lot into it, so as much. I'm just happy that it's on Hard Lens Media and that Kira McCown is leading the way. So there we go. So there's a woman right there leading the way with ballot initiatives, Kira McCown, and she has been a wonderful source of information, especially talking about ballot initiatives. I didn't mean to cut you off. Continue on.
Yeah, so I've been wanting to do a panel for ballot initiatives and trying to find people from each of the states that have ballot initiatives. I'm in Massachusetts, so I can be the Massachusetts person. But yeah, definitely, Kira, if you are there listening, definitely hit me up if you're interested in doing a panel for that.
Well, I think I know somebody who's the host of Hard Lens Media who'd be more than happy to get you in contact with Kira. So I think I'll get in contact with this guy. He might be a little bit of an egomaniac, but I'll slap him upside the head and tell him, like, hey, you need to contact. I'll tell him to contact Kira. So there you go. Talk about myself here sometimes. There you go. I also want to give a huge shout out to Robert, the Robert Escobar Show. When all I did was work, I only had time to watch local news for weather and traffic. What little political information I got for them. So shouldn't we start there, protesting outside local news stations? Well, I mean, let's face it, it'll garner some attention. Let's not forget how CNN, they ignored the biggest story when there was a huge protest right in front of their offices during the primaries, even though they were covering, they weren't covering it properly. So there we go. So
that's a good idea.
I will. So I say, yeah, that works. That works very good. So no matter what, I have to say, Sabrina, it's always good to have you on the show. So I think as a final note, two things. Number one, I will get in contact with Kira, and I will be sure to have her reach out to you. So we'll just exchange emails maybe at the end of the show. And I think I still have your email, I think. So I have to double check that. But I will be sure to make sure that Kira gets in contact with you about a potential ballot initiative summit or meeting. So there we go. So I'll make sure that happens. So I think that's another thing too. Where can our viewers and subscribers learn more about the Women's Summit meeting of 2022? Where can they go online to follow it, support it, and what time do they need to attend?
Absolutely. So it starts Saturday, the 26th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also Sunday, the 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There are 4 panels, 2 on Saturday night and 2 on Sunday night. So that's where you can find it, on my channel, Sabby Sabs. And you can also follow me on Twitter at SabbySabs2, because I'm posting information there as well.
All right, fantastic. Again, Sabrina, you've been speaking truth to power. You've been calling out the neoliberal establishment. You've been calling out the hypocrisy of corporate media, as well as the hypocrisy of these larger social media platforms. I'm happy that we have individuals like yourself becoming more available for the people to see. I want to see more citizen journalists, more commentators doing this, and I'm very proud to have you on our show. And I will give this invite to you. If you're ever in the Chicagoland area, you're more than welcome to come by the 99 Perspective Studio. Check us out. Be a visitor here. Join our show. We would be very honored to have you visit us in the city of Chicago, should that ever happen.
It'll happen one day, Kit. I told you I still have to come back for that pizza.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because, of course, well, let's face it. Before we end this interview, Chicago-style pizza, it is number one. Take that, Combo Couch.
New Yorkers are hurt.
I know. And Fiorella's, yeah, I know. Maybe her heart will heal after that big wound. So there we go. So thank you so much, Sabrina, for being on our show. And I urge everyone to be sure to subscribe to her channel. She's speaking truth to power. When does your show come on? And where can they go also to follow you on social media?
Yes, so I'll be on tomorrow night live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's typically Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for being on our show. All the best to you.
Bye.